Welcome to Mary Alice.
What did you do?
Content warnings can be found in the episode description. Welcome to our first video podcast.
Video episode, yeah. And also our first bonus episode. That's exciting.
I know, I was very exciting. We welcome and interview the incredible Emily Charouhas, who plays Ashley in episode 103, also in 118. So look out for that cameo because we will be bringing that back.
She's coming up.
She's coming back. And she is an incredible singer, writer, performer, director. She does it all, and she's doing it all for us in this episode.
She is incredible. She was so generous with her time. She talks about her time on set. She talks about her interactions with the cast, how she got the role, what she's up to now.
I love her.
You just learn so much.
I feel like she's our best friend.
She also does us the great pleasure of recreating her iconic Ashley death stare.
It was an honour.
Very exciting.
It was an honour to be in the presence of.
Indeed. And also, notably, something that is purely visual. So if you want to switch to the video format to see that happen, then if you're listening on Spotify, you can switch straight to video. And if you're listening on any other platform, there should be a link to our YouTube in the description so you can watch the interview. And we'll be back next week with our regularly scheduled content.
I'm so excited for you to see it.
Alrighty, enjoy.
Bye. Well, welcome, Emily Charouhas.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you. I know we have just told you that in our pre-briefing, but it has to be said twice.
I am seriously so excited about this. All of these many years later, I do not get tired of talking about Desperate Housewives. So thank you for having me, giving me that opportunity.
We are so excited to have Ashley. And the first question, you've segued into it beautifully, was how did you get involved with the show and what was your experience like on set?
So this is one of my favorite audition stories I ever had, like throughout the entirety of the time I was acting. It was pretty early on in my kind of acting adventures. I had just recently gotten signed to an agency and I had never had a job before. I hadn't had a single acting job before this. And it was one of the more substantial auditions I'd gotten since it was like a guest starring role on a series that we already knew was going to be on ABC. So that was big and exciting, you know? And I went in on this thing. I was so convinced, like, I have to get this role. And Ashley's she's a little spooky, right? So I convinced my mom to take me to Hot Topic. Keep in mind, this was 2003? I want to say 2004, like OG Hot Topic. And she bought me like these little goth girl clothes to wear to the audition. And I knew all of the sides completely by memory. Like I memorized them. I had like coaching just for this audition. I was like so in it, right? And we go to the initial audition and I go in and I do what I've kind of prepped. And the casting director was like, that's not right. That's not who she is. You've completely misread this. I need you to look at it like this and I need you to do it again. And so I did that, I just took whatever direction it was that he gave me and I kind of did it again. And then he was like, okay, thank you. And I left. I walk out with my mom. I didn't say a word to her. I was silent. And we get to the parking garage and she was like, so how did it go? And I burst into tears, just started like sobbing because I was convinced that I had blown it so hard. And she, my mom was always the best type of stage mom you could possibly have. She was very supportive, very encouraging. And she was like, honey, it's okay. Like you can't walk in there expecting to know what they want. If you don't get this one, it's on to the next thing. It's not a big deal. Right. So I don't know how much time went by, maybe a week, and I get a call back, which was kind of surprising. And I go in. And before I go into the room, the casting director came out into the hallway and pulled me aside. This is insane. This is the only time this ever happened to me in the entirety of the time I was acting. Pulled me aside and said, I apologize. do you remember what you did in your first audition? And I was like, I didn't say this, but I was like, yeah, I do. I spent a lot of time working on it. And he was like, do you remember what you did in your first audition? I was like, yeah. Like, so it turns out that's actually what they do want for this character. So you did it right the first time. If you can remember what you did, we want to see that again. So feeling very vindicated in my little 9, 10-year-old self, I go back in, I do it again. I leave. I think I had one more callback after that. And then I booked it. And I think I was at another audition when I found out I booked it. And I was totally overwhelmed and excited. And my mom was crying, and all the other moms in the room were like congratulating us. It was really sweet. And it all happened really quickly from there, if I remember correctly. I don't think even 2 weeks passed between then and actually going and filming it.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it happened like really rapidly. And the really cool thing was like, you know, obviously it's a very early episode, so none of them had aired yet. So nobody really knew like what this was going to be at that point. It was just kind of this general sense of excitement and possibility. I think everyone had an idea that it would be something really special, but I don't think anyone knew exactly what yet. And the day before I started actually shooting it, I went onto the Universal Studios lot for a fitting, for a costume fitting. And they actually took me down to Wisteria Lane to
Oh,
like introduce me to everybody, which was really sweet. And I had my script already. And I remember meeting Mark Moses, Mary Alice's husband. I remember meeting Mark Moses, and he was so, so nice right off the bat. And he was like, I play the bad guy. And I was like, ooh, exciting. And he was the one who was like, do you have your script with you? Because we can get everyone to sign it for you if you want, which was
that's
so
so
cool.
nice.
He was incredibly nice. Honestly, almost everybody was incredibly nice and just really welcoming, and made me feel very at home and very much like a part of things, which was really cool. The day I actually started shooting, um, they have like trailers for the cast, and they're kind of a little bit offsite. Actually, my trailer was right next to the house from Psycho, which I thought was really cool. And so they pick you up in this van, right? And they take you from there to wherever the hair and makeup trailers are, and then they'll take you to set. So they pick me up from my trailer, and the first thing someone asked me was, "What would you like for breakfast?" And I thought that was the craziest thing. I was like, "What do you like? Just whatever I want? I could just have. What do you mean?" And I don't remember what I got. Probably eggs and bacon, but I thought that was insane. And the guy who plays John,
Jess Metcalf.
Jesse Mack, yes, he was in the van already when they picked me up, and he was sitting in the back row, and I was sitting one row in front of him. And I just remember looking at him like, I, I, I didn't know men could look like that. Like,
Oh,
who
yeah.
who is this man in this van with me right now? And what is happening to me? I don't understand what's going on. So it's possible I may have had some kind of awakening because of Jesse Metcalf in this van on set of Desperate Housewives.
Who
But
would?
he was also incredibly nice, just like
Oh,
so tolerant of this like small child who was clearly out of her depth when it came to looking at him.
did John Tucker Must Die come out and you just,
Yes.
everyone saw what you saw?
I was overwhelmed by John Tucker Must Die. I think that became my favorite movie for a good chunk of time.
Oh, yeah.
I
So
love
yeah.
that you kind of informed the character of Ashley so much with your decisions for the audition and stuff, and that you really made that character what she was. That's really cool to hear.
We were saying
Thank
that
you.
Jakub mentioned in mentions in the pod that you almost would have been the perfect child for the Omen. You that horror influence really comes across. I think that's why it's so funny. The choice to make it the kind of committing to the horror of it.
Uh, I got that more than once, especially like shortly after it aired. I remember there was a radio show that mentioned it and definitely made some Damien comparisons, which I thought was great because I was such a horror movie fan, still am. So I think that's probably a big part of why I played it so spooky.
I also love horror movies, and I loved seeing you in that Ash versus Evil Dead fan promo video thing. Stunning
Wow,
content.
you went deep. I am very impressed by that for sure.
Something else I'm definitely wondering is, are you a fan of Desperate Housewives yourself? Have you seen the show in its entirety? Were you allowed to watch it as it aired, or were you too young? What's your experience as a viewer of the show?
So initially, when it aired, we did start watching it. We started with, when I say we, I mean my parents and I. We started watching it from the beginning. Um, and I remember the exact episode and the exact moment where my parents decided I was no longer allowed to watch this show. And it was, I can't remember where in the first season this falls, but it's the episode where Bree and Rex are trying to fix their marriage, and Rex reveals that he is into some freaky stuff.
Mm, mm.
And I remember like so vividly my mom picking up the remote and like turning it off and looking at my dad and then just being like,
We're done. We're done.
maybe we watch something else now. I didn't actually start watching it until the pandemic. I started watching it during COVID and I got through a pretty substantial chunk of it. I don't think I don't think I finished it. I may have finished it and I'm just not remembering, but I know I at least got to the point where like Juanita's around, like Gabrielle's daughter's around. I remember feeling like such a weird sense of kinship
Of
with
course.
her because it was like, me and you were both personally socially victimized by this show. I think she had to deal with a lot more than I did, but um I I just felt this weird sense of kinship with her and I was like, man, this girl is so good and she's so adorable. And some of the writing is just brutal when it
Oh,
comes to poor Juanita's character.
I have to
Mm.
ask which character you related to the most, if any.
I want you to guess. I want you to take one guess and then I'll tell you
Oh my
because I
God.
don't think you're gonna guess it.
Okay.
Um,
Well, we know you like horror.
that's where my
We know
brain's
that
going.
you're a talented
Mm.
singer.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say.
Brie can sing, but Brie feels very far away.
No.
Karen
Um,
McCluskey? I don't know why I went with Karen McCluskey.
Karen McCluskey, final answer.
yeah. Let's lock it in.
Oh.
You should have trusted yourself because it's Brie.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, we're gonna need to dive into this.
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, I I felt completely differently about Brie, when I was a kid, obviously.
Mm,
Um, but rewatching it, I was like, this woman is incredible. Everything about her is incredible. And I just had this weird, I don't know, I felt this weird connection to her like insistent perfection, because that's
yes.
definitely something I've experienced in my life, but that she has this like, I don't know, I felt like watching her and I mean, Marsha Cross is just insanely talented.
So good.
And I always felt like watching her, you could see this fantastic thing just like broiling right under the surface. And I don't know if it was more so that I related to her immediately or that I wanted to be more like her. Because
Yes.
I also have this like, I have this real domestic streak in me. I love to cook. I love to take care of people. I love things to be nice and orderly and proper and good. Probably surprising, but I really do have that like that deep sense of like formality a lot of the time.
Yes.
But I loved how layered her character was with it. I always thought that it was just she was my favorite character to watch, and definitely the one that I felt related to the most.
What is your signature dish of choice?
I make Greek food. I make a lot of Greek food. I
Oh,
am Greek, so that might explain the domesticity. But I grew up eating a lot of Greek food, and it's definitely my favorite thing to make. So I'll throw together like some lamb, some lemon potatoes.
yum.
You touched on it a little bit earlier. So I was just wondering now, actually, what was kind of the reaction at the time that you got when the show aired and like with people you knew and just in general? I guess there wasn't so much social media at the time, but yeah, what was that experience like?
It was really interesting. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, so child acting and like being a child who ends up being on TV or being, like your parents' friends finding out that it's not like super unusual. It's not the craziest thing in the world. And most of my parents' friends were already in the industry. But I was living in Santa Clarita at the time, which is like a suburb, probably 30 minutes outside of Los Angeles County. So it was a little bit less prominent when it came to like the kids I went to school with. I was not popular in school. I was very much like, I don't know if it surprises you to look at that little girl and imagine that she wasn't the most popular girl in school, but I was fairly quiet and had my own little circle of friends, and that was about it. And after Desperate Housewives aired, I suddenly had a lot of new friends, which was strange and didn't last very long, but it was interesting for a moment. The weirdest part was um, getting recognized,
Oh, of
which
course.
I had not, I just hadn't really anticipated for some reason. And I remember there was one night I went out to dinner with my parents to this restaurant we went to all the time, and a couple ended up stopping by our table on their way out and just very politely being like, "Were you on Desperate Housewives last night?" Or whatever it was. And my mom was horrified, and my dad thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was just kind of sitting there like, uh-huh, that was me. And so that was interesting. That happened a handful of times, and I think I got more enthused by it with every passing time. Oprah had like a bunch of the ladies on her show one day, and they showed a clip from that episode that I was in. And we didn't see this, but I was in line at Target with my mom, and her phone rings, and it's her sister. It's my Aunt Molly, and she's borderline hysterical. She's on Oprah. Oh my God, Emily's on Oprah. She's on Oprah. And we're just checking out at Target and finding out that I was on Oprah, and that was surreal, very surreal.
I love that.
Incredible. You kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to ask you specifically about the absolute death stare that you give Gabby throughout the episode. We are obsessed with it. And so I just wondered how much of that was just you versus like how much direction you got.
You know, I don't want to I don't want to toot my own horn, but that was very much an Emily thing.
Yes.
Um, and frankly, I don't know how much actual acting went into it because I've been death staring people like that for my whole life. That has been an intrinsic part of me, I think, since day one. I don't know what drove me to do that, honestly, because it was in some ways, I think, kind of a weird choice, one that I'm very glad I made. But yeah, it's not like they were like, give her the Kubrick stare. I just kind of did it. Um, and it's, I think, honestly, one of the things I like even more than like that weird Kubrick stare is that moment where I think it's when I'm like drawing with the chalk on the sidewalk. And she's like, sometimes we even kiss people who are just our friends. And I just kind of look at her like, girl.
It's also
And I don't,
everybody's been looked at like by a child in that way of, oh, come on.
yes, yeah, that is completely accurate. The more time I spend with children, the more I'm like, actually, I think that was a pretty grounded portrayal I had back in the day.
You were doing the deep cut. You were doing full method acting.
hmm There's this hilarious picture of me on my first day of fourth grade, and I'm wearing a black skirt and a black poncho
Oh,
and those black rubber bracelets that everyone was wearing in
yeah.
like 2004 and bright green Converse. And it's my first day of school picture, and I'm standing next to this girl in full Hello Kitty head to toe. And I am just obsessed with that picture. It's one of my favorite pictures of me ever taken because I find it so funny.
It reminds me of that meme of the house of the two houses next
Mm,
to each other, and one's the beautiful pink Barbie house,
I know
and
exactly what you're yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've driven by those houses about a million
oh
times. And the
wow,
fact that the internet finally discovered and fell in love with those houses makes me happy every day.
that's
I
great.
think I would be starstruck if I saw those houses in real life.
I think so.
They're amazing. They're on the Pacific Coast Highway. They're like right there on the beach. I think they're in Malibu. And yeah, a bunch of times driving up and down that strip, I've seen them and I'm like, oh, my favorite houses.
Yes. I have an odd question for you. I think it's my favorite that we have to ask you.
I'm excited.
Did you do your own stunts? Because there is a bike fall that occurs.
I did not do my own stunt. And
Oh,
I was a little bit upset that they wouldn't let me do my own stunt. I think I asked, like, do I get to fall off the bike? And they were like, no, 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 you're not doing that. She was actually a grown woman, which wasn't surprising. I don't know if they have child stunt doubles.
sure.
Seems like there might be like dicey liability issues with that. She was a very, very petite woman, and they put a wig on her. And it's hilarious to me that when other people watch this episode, they don't see that moment and go, that is hilarious that they just stuck a grown adult in this terrible wig and had her fall off a bike because that is what it looks like to me. Maybe because I know that's what it was, but
Oh,
I was dying over this ridiculous wig they put this poor woman in. And I think they just kind of slapped it on her head and then put the helmet over it because it looks hilarious. I ended up doing a second episode of Desperate Housewives.
yes.
Um, and all I had to do in this episode was ride a bike down the sidewalk and glare at Gabby. That was it. That was my whole role in that episode. And this this particular episode was already kind of behind schedule because it was raining for several days, so we had to keep delaying. And by the time they actually got me on set, everybody was frustrated, everybody was impatient, everybody was having a bad time. And the sidewalks on the Wisteria Lane set are scaled down, right? It's when you get there and you're looking at it, it feels much less real. It feels like a set, and that's because everything is at kind of an interesting smaller scale.
Yes.
And I was not and am not a particularly coordinated person. So they put me on the bike and they're like, okay, you need to ride down the sidewalk. You need to glare at Gabby. So the sidewalk is curved, right? So I'm riding this bike, trying desperately to like match the curve of the sidewalk while also making direct, scary eye contact with Gabby. And obviously my reflexes are kicking in. So I keep looking back in front of me. And the director, who was not the same director as my first episode was Arlene Sanford, an angel from heaven who made me feel so good about everything I did.
Oh.
This director was not happy with that. And he kept being like, you got to stop looking away. You got to look at Gabby. You can't look at the sidewalk. You have to look at Gabby. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. So finally I do one take where I just go for it. And I just lock my eyes on her. I'm like, do not look at the road. And I rode that bike directly into the camera.
Oh no!
directly into the camera. I think it would have added some flavor to see me completely eat shit on the sidewalks of Wisteria Lane authentically.
Yes, your stunt double is shaking their head.
Perfect.
I know. Yeah, you guys were so concerned about me falling off this bike.
So we had a little bit of a stock of you, I think it's fair to
Ah,
say. And we saw that you also write and you produce and you sing.
mhm.
What kind of projects really excite you as an artist and make you want to be part of them?
That's such a good question. The older I've gotten, the more I've really been interested in doing stuff. This sounds, I already know this is gonna sound so annoying coming out of my mouth. I really like doing stuff that I find really challenging, like very emotionally challenging. Um, I like to, sorry, I have a dog on my lap right now, and she wants to be a part of things. Say hi.
Hello, sweet girl.
Yes. Yeah, she's very sweet. She's a lap sitter. I really like to I like to do stuff that is kind of scary to me. You go over here now. Kind of scary to me a little bit. Um, I got out of acting when I was like 15 and didn't really return to it at all until 2016. And I started doing stage plays at this theater in North Hollywood where I live. And it's this really cool kind of black box theater called Zombie Joe's Underground. And they do a lot of like theater of cruelty and Grand Guignol style theater. And it was terrifying when I started doing shows there because it was immediately like, oh, we're doing a bunch of like body horror stuff, and I have to be nude on stage for half of this, and I have to portray all of these like really difficult, scary emotions and all that. But as soon as I started really doing it, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to do stuff that makes people um, kind of uncomfortable and makes people kind of address certain things within themselves. And I just like doing stuff that is provocative, I guess, because I that's what I like to consume
Yes.
most of the time. I like watching things that are thought provoking and that are scary and that are uncomfortable. I wrote my first like real full length stage play in 2016. Um, and then it got produced at that same theater. And someone ended up coming to see it, this incredible, remarkable talent named Jam Scotty, who came and saw it 4 times and then asked me if I was interested in turning it into a film. And I said, obviously, yes, that has been the
Um,
goal
Yeah.
since day one. So he and I started working together on it, and we shot it in 2018, and that became my first feature film, which is called Artificial Flowers. And we co-wrote the screenplay, he and I starred in it with this incredible actor named Andrew Villarreal. And it just got distribution through Anchor Bay. So it's actually coming out this year, which is super exciting.
That's
And
amazing.
thank you. I appreciate it. I'm really, really excited. I know I'm nervous for my loved ones to watch it. Um,
That's the best type of art.
thank you. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree completely. I don't know if they will agree, but that's okay.
I
You
hope
know?
everyone listening to this is going to go out and watch it as well when it comes out too.
Yes, we'll definitely have to put
I
that in our descriptions.
I hope everyone goes and watches it, and I hope everyone forgives me afterwards. So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Emily, you have been so generous to talk to us today.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. My at is just my last name, so it's Charouhas, Charouhas. Find me on Instagram and say hi, and let's be
Amazing.
friends.
We'll link it into the episode description. I just wanted to finish off by being a little bit cheeky and ask you something, and feel free to say no. But I'm wondering,
Anything.
Could you give us the Ashley death stare?
Oh, absolutely. Hold on one second. I gotta prepare. Give me a second.
Yes, sorry.
You're asking so much of me right now,
I know.
guys. Please. Was that okay? I'm rusty. I'm out of practice.
Unbelievable.
That is my best moment of the year so far.
Dare we say it's like riding a bike?
If I had a bike at my disposal right now, I would do it just for you. I'd probably run into a camera somewhere. I'd find
Thank you
one.
so much. You've been so kind and so generous with your time. I've loved doing this. So
This was so fun for me. Thank you guys so much. I loved this, and I'm so excited to listen to the podcast, the whole thing. It's giving me a great reason to rewatch Desperate Housewives. So thank you guys so much.
and please say goodbye to your beautiful dog for us.
I will. She's over there. She's rolling in the grass. She's thrilled with life right now.
Thanks
Thank
so much.
you.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out our Instagram for visuals, behind the scenes content, and more.
You can find us by searching for Modded, that's MEWDYD.
Or just search for Mary Alice, What Did You Do?
This podcast is brought to you entirely by us, Erin McGee.
And Jakub Tanzi. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to leave us a review. It really helps us out.
Join us next time for another episode of Mary Alice,
What Did You Do?